Hello. Today is Sunday, September 22nd, and I wanted to talk with you a little bit about what we discussed for class last week and what you have to look forward to next week. I'm glad that so many of you enjoyed and were able to participate in our panel of clinical faculty, and I enjoyed reading about some of your discussions on the topic. Many of you commented about the synergy between the panel and the readings that we assigned for the class, and how you enjoyed hearing firsthand how transformational leadership can be used successfully in an academic career. Kind of on a related point, I noticed many of you found it very powerful to see real-life examples of women leaders and to hear about their journeys. And this was a main motivation behind our deciding to have the panel, because I know I found it very, very impactful in my own life to not only just read about women's journeys to leadership, but to actually meet somebody face to face and be able to ask them questions. And especially if those leaders that I'm meeting are from my own world here at the university, that makes the whole idea of aspiring to leadership seem a lot more attainable and a lot more real. So I'm very glad that many of you saw value in the panel. I was also interested to hear from you how you believe that support, or many of the women found support for their careers from their families and partners, and how they believe that has been critical to their success. I think that's one very valuable aspect of having these panels, is to hear from women leaders sort of what's the secret sauce, what's been very important to them. And hearing that your partners in life can have a very big impact on your ability to become a leader, I think is a very valuable piece of knowledge. In some of your discussions, many of you also talked about the examples of the tax that women pay. And I read about many of you being very frustrated about the fact that this tax exists, and that we basically have to scheme and also show examples of our past experience and qualifications to justify the legitimacy of our leadership roles to the males that we lead. That can be somewhat discouraging that we're still at the point where that needs to be done. But in the positive sense, some of you also remarked that at least the women on the panel described their success. So yes, there are hoops to be jumped through, but many of you were also heartened to see that there can be success at the end of the tunnel, and there's a way to get things done, and you can still attain the leadership that you desire. I found it especially valuable also to learn that many of you are already using some of the same strategies the panel described in your own careers, and that you've already unfortunately experienced some of the same challenges as the panelists, but that you're also discovering strategies on your own to dealing effectively with them. And I'm glad that you felt comfortable enough to share some of those strategies with each other. So again, I'm really glad that the panel was a valuable experience for you. We'll be having another panel in mid-November, and that panel will be composed of basic scientists. So it'll be the PhD panel. And it'll also be a mix of faculty who are senior, mid-career, and junior faculty. So I also want to applaud all of you on the rich discussion that you've been having about the socio-ecological models that you've been uploading. I really enjoyed reading about them, and I'm glad that you all have found it such a useful activity. Many of you commented that the intentional process of identifying your different professional networks and your personal networks helped you to discover the importance of network building as a process, and that it helped you see which networks that you need to grow to become more established in your careers. I was happy to see that some of you have experienced the value of your alumni networks, and that you've recognized that professional societies can take many forms outside the scientific organizations in your specific disciplines. For example, some of you spoke about scientific advocacy groups, national mentoring networks, science policy organizations. These are all really fantastic professional societies that you can grow and become involved in to help enrich your careers and your lives. I also read that many of you have been discouraged by the high price tag associated with membership in scientific societies. Because of the cost, I agree, there's definitely a need to cull through all the societies in your discipline and maybe just pick one or two that are a good fit. In my experience, I've benefited a great deal from membership in the one society that aligns with my interests. I met my future postdoc employer at the annual conference of that society, and several of the individuals who eventually wrote letters of reference for my promotion, I also met through that society. And I've met many of my collaborators through the annual meeting. Because it takes years to build relationships with people, I'll be honest, I didn't reap the benefits of that society membership for at least 5 years after becoming a member. But in general, I think it's been worthwhile for me. But I would encourage all of you to look broadly for the society that's the best fit. Also ask people who have the job that someday you aspire to what organizations they belong to. That can be especially helpful because I know many of you are pursuing non-academic careers. For those of you who are graduate students after you graduate. And I'd encourage you to look for people that have those careers already and ask them what societies they belong to. For example, there are societies for science or engineering education, societies for individuals interested in mentoring at all career levels, societies for people interested in science policy, and even entrepreneurship in science. The list goes on and on. So I'd encourage you to take your time and find the society that's the best fit for you. You may be the only person in your entire lab group who's a member of that society, but if it helps you and meet your goals, then it's worthwhile. So this week, the readings will allow you to delve into the concepts of status and gender stereotypes. In the reflections, you'll have the opportunity to share examples of gender stereotypes that you've seen in your professional life and to share effective strategies to respond to those stereotypes. So I hope you all have a really wonderful week. And I look forward very much to your discussions.